we're ready to put together our final presentation for Project 1. So I want to just go through what's involved with that so everybody's clear. Okay. So you've already handed in your final design file last week. And again, even if there were some tweaks to the final design file for your prototype, it's fine. I don't need to see the final design file again. But the three things you're going to include are the click-through prototype, a design documentation file, which will be as a PDF, and then a case study PDF. So the click-through prototype, right, this is pretty straightforward. Create a prototype using your choice of InVision app, Figma, or Adobe IxD. Post a shareable link on the class blog. Include as many interactions as are practical on this in the software that you're using, right? So that means if you're using InVision app and it doesn't really have an animation capability, I'm not expecting to see animations in your prototype. But if you're using Figma or Adobe IxD, which do have animating capabilities, well, then I would expect to see a few of them. Okay. You can also create additional motion prototypes in After Effects as standalone videos, right, that show any animated sequences the prototyping software can't create. Now, those are not required. We did do that basic After Effects exercise, and the intent there is so that you would have, an introduction to some of the skills to try this stuff out. Again, if you've taken the motion design class or you've worked on After Effects in other classes and feel comfortable prototyping with it, go right ahead. Okay. Design documentation. Now you're going to create a PDF that explains all the interactions, demonstrations, and instructions to code your article. Right, we're keeping in mind we're sort of sending this material off to a developer who's going to build it for us. And we need to be able to communicate with them so that they will be able to do what we're asking, right? Being able to do this kind of explanation for people who are not designers or not professionals is often what employers are hinting at when they say, must have excellent communication skills, right? It's great if you can design stuff, but if you can't help people make it and get it out into the world, it's less than useful. So be sure to include any working links in the document if you want them to see animations or examples on other sites, right? So when you export the PDF, make sure hyperlinks is selected so that those links will work. Now, for the design documentation, I've created a template, right, that you can start with, and we'll take a look at that in a minute. But it's available as an InDesign document and as a PDF, just so you can see it. And I've also linked to an example from last semester that you can sort of see what it's looking like. Right, my template only has one page, but that's not to indicate that you should try and squeeze your whole idea onto one page. Make as many pages and make whatever layout changes are necessary to explain your project. And you'll see that handled well in the example. And we'll go through that when I'm done just running through these. Some examples from a design firm who I work with regularly. So one for general instructions, right? Again, this is an indication of, what professional firms are doing when they send out their instructions just as you to follow along. Detailed callouts, right, to mark up and so for design purposes for the developer to understand the sizing and placement and kind of what the designers are after. Development instructions, this is similar to the detailed callouts. This is a project I worked on recently, and it was the document I put together to send to the developers that explained what I wanted them to do on making some additions to an existing site. Lastly will be the case study PDF. And, same old stuff, just documenting your process, collect all the pieces that you built and did for each step of the way, put them into a presentation, and there's an example that you can take a look at. It worked out pretty well. Okay. Should have a cover page, just brief explanation. And the images and content, again, we're thinking about our portfolio coming up, so we want to constantly, each project you do, collect the process material for each project, organize it so you have it on hand. Think about it as just part of the problem. And so that when it comes time to put your portfolio online, or you need to put together a document to send somebody, they want to see your work, you have it all at your fingertips and you can just do that. Okay. So let's just take a look at those. So here's the format for the design presentation, right, for the documentation. And all I'm trying to indicate is, right, you would do a screen grab of your site, right, and maybe if it didn't quite fit, you could do 2 pages. And then you use little markers to point to various sections in the design and explain what it is, right? So item number 1, maybe this is the slider, and you explain what that is. Item 2, item 3, here and here. As many as you need. I've also included a little storyboard explanation section. So maybe there's some kind of animation or some kind of action that's happening here. And it's, you need to show how it starts, what happens in version 1, what happens in version 2, and explain what would be going on in this other sections for, like, maybe this is a timeline or who knows what this is. But these are the basic ideas. You want to be able to show the material for each whatever interaction you're trying to show. Okay. Here's an example from last semester. I've just got to call out how the navigation works, and just this little drop down, and then what the hover effect would look like, working its way through, what these tiles are all about, how they work their way on, right? How the interaction would work here for the call interaction. Again, how their imagery, how the hovers work, how it slides in, gets smaller, right? What the icons are in the footer. Again, you can download this and sort of go through. But the purpose here is, like, for each section where there's something going on, she's done a nice job of trying to explain what she's hoping will happen for each item. Now, in this section, right, she's talking about what she wants the animation to be like, and she's linked out to some examples online that the animator can go look at and sort of see what the feel is like. So when it comes time to actually animate it, they have something to go by. Okay, so just an approach page. This is like one section out of the website. And here we go, right? Here's a screen grab of what the page will look like, and then indications of where interactions occur and what should be happening. This is talking about their animated experience mood, like what they want it to feel like when it animates. These kind of scientific diagrams. And here's a little storyboard, right? So when it gets down, you see this little orange dot here in the middle, and what they're hoping for is that when you put your cursor on the right, the gray line will tilt and the orange dot will roll down to the side. Then you put the cursor on the other side and it would flip the gray and the orange would slide. So, it's like a little tilt-a-whirl kind of thing. Horizontal line fills, right? And then up, it opens up. Right, and here's the little example. It opens, opens, and then it's flat, and there it's all wide open. So this thing kind of closes and then opens. Then there's an authentic voice, right? So this thing will vibrate when the microphone picks up, right? So it vibrates to respond to microphone input. Then I'll do this kind of partnership as it slides apart. And then I get into their process. And each one has a little animation. How they want all the animations to work for each one. All right, you have the plus, and then you click on it, and it blows up into this big dot. It shows all the information. And when you close it, it's back down, and so the dot really covers the whole screen. And then the footer. Okay, so again, a lot of interactions, right? A lot of animated effects. And they, again, have not animated all this stuff. They've just sent explanations so that the developer can build this for them. So next is some markups. And what they've done here is they just want to explain, right, all the sizes. So let's just zoom in, right? So here it is, right? They have their columns, right? The columns that they're expecting, all the spacing, how much padding, right? How many columns, what the full pixel width is. They want this space, right? So the titles are always within this 70 pixel height. And then from that line down is another 70 pixels, 1200 width of their imagery, 600 height, right? It's the full column. And then they just go through it all and they mark it all up so that all the specifications that they've designed into it, right, are available, right? What their typeface is, what the color is. And again, all this stuff should be in the design document, so it's not like it's nowhere else. But, you know, this represents kind of what the professional level of documentation would look like, right? Yours doesn't have to do this, of course, right? We don't have all the time in the world. They have multiple designers working full-time on these problems. But it is just a good example of, you know, the level of work that is required at a professional level. Now, and this is the development document. So this is from a project I worked on recently. It wasn't a full site. It was really just adding this section in here into an existing website. So let's just zoom in. So I'm giving them my instructions, right? What I want, what we're doing. We're adding a new section. Want to be able to do some parallax, right? Be able to. And so then I just sort of mark out right around, this is the section, like just, you know, don't make it a sticky menu, leave it like it is. Then the whole section is going to be this new stuff, and then how to handle the content, you know, where the background image should bleed to, but where the text stays, what the height should do, how the image should behave, the inset text. I want these little arrow things. I forgot to put that in this. So I had to revise it again, but these are the anchor points. So when you click the arrow, it would slide to these specific points right in the screen. But again, it goes through each section and how I want it all to work so that the developer has what they need. If we go second page, I also did a phone version, right, showing how it changes when it goes down into a smaller format. This way, the developer doesn't have to figure it out. They can just work from my model and make their stuff. Okay. All right. Lastly is the case study. Just a little introduction to the project. Right. Let's go through the research, the competitive analysis, right, the visual audit, initial sketches, right, the article analysis, and some wireframing, the design development, and some of the final design examples, right? Doesn't include all of the design, and then included the design documentation as well, all into one document. I think, yeah, right, it's linked it all out. So it's a nice overview, right, that sort of shows her ability to go through all the steps in the process, all the pieces she delivered and made as part of the project, and gives a really good overview of her capabilities for projects like this, right? It's more than just the final at the end. Okay, wrapping up here, right? The intent with a lot of these is the assumption that we're handing off our design to a developer, right? So feel free. And when you do that, right, you have to package up all your assets and your files, put them into a single project folder, and make sure that you would include these items, right? I'm not asking you to do that for this assignment, but be aware that when you send stuff off, right, you can't just send it all as a bunch of wacky attachments on your email. You have to put them into some kind of order. And it's always good to put a README file in that explains what files are included, where they are, why they're there, and why you've provided them, right? So whatever the source design file is, all your photos, copy of the article, fonts, right? Desktop and web, if you need them both. The design documentation, right? Explaining what it all is. And then if you have any development instructions that are more specific and, not included in the design documentation, you should include those as well. All right. So that's all we have for this. And I look forward to your finals coming up. Good luck.